No,
There we go.
13 years ago. So.
All right, we're live. What's up, guys? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Deck Talk Podcast. And we've got a gentleman that is a local guy to us. Maybe not a local guy to most of y'all, but he is a local guy to us. And it is going to be a blast chit chat. We've had him on the podcast once before, doing a little interview with him. But guys, if you don't know, I'm Colin Burnett.
That's right, Colin, and I'm Norman Lee. But first, we got to take care of some business for tonight about Bruiser Baits. You know what? This episode is brought to you by Bruiser Baits and our newly released Bruiser Challenge. Watch as Colin and myself go head-to-head match tournament style in this epic battle for supremacy on the world-renowned Bass Factory, Lake Chickamauga, with only a select number of Bruiser Baits at our disposal. Watch how it all unfolds as the real stars of the show come to play. You can watch the full video now playing on YouTube at Norman Lee Fishing, at CMB Bass in 1983, and on our Deck Talk Podcast YouTube channel as well. Make sure to go to Bruiser Baits website, www.bruiserbaits.com. Don't forget, when you do that, make sure you get your instant savings at checkout by using our discount code DeckTalk10. And again, that's bruiserbaits.com. Don't forget, get that savings at checkout when you order by using our discount code DeckTalk10. Man, Colin, that is right. You know what? We have been excited about this show for a while now, and you're right, Colin. I could just walk out my front door, and in about 5 minutes, I'm at this dude's house. He now lives right in this area. But anyway, let's get started. Let's give him a proper introduction tonight. All right, our guest. Well, let's just get this started with. He is a former motocross racer. Get that, a motocross racer, originally from Ohio. In 2011, he won the second major event that he ever entered, the Bass Pro Shop Southern Open, qualifying him for his first Bassmaster Classic. 1 year later, he became a touring pro with an astonishing 22 top 20s, 9 top 10s, 1 win, and a 3-time Red Crest qualifier. Mr. Fletcher Shryock.
What's up,
Thank
brother?
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you.
Man,
Yes, sir.
that's the least we can do, brother.
No, thank you guys so much. I enjoy living up here now. Quick story. I grew up in Ohio, lived there for 30 years, and then I just fell in love with Guntersville one fall. I wanted to stop there just to fish the grass for a week, and then next thing you know, I was living in an RV without a house down there in Alabama. Ended up finding a house there, and then lived there for, I don't know what it was, 5 or 6 years, and now met a girl in Chattanooga, and now moved up the road a little ways, but not far from Guntersville still, you know. Yeah. Still about an hour and a half away from heaven, as I like to call it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that Scottsboro area up there in the fall, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I really enjoy this area, though, and the people especially. It's really nice here.
Yeah, it is a little bit different than I got to go to Mount Orab every Monday, which is a little east of Cincinnati, about 20 minutes, and deliver Little Debbie's. And every time I go up there, they're like, man, because they're like, your accent. That's all they tell me. Your accent.
It's crazy because I've gotten used to it. I don't even think you guys have an accent. You probably think I have one, but I've gotten so used to the Southern. I hear when I hear Northern people talk, or even when I talk to my mom, sometimes I hear it thick. I'm like, woo.
Yeah.
They have an accent now. That's how long I've been in the South. I don't know if that's good or not, but.
Yeah. So we're glad to have you down here.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I enjoy it. So.
Yeah. So I want to ask before we really get started, how is your back doing?
The back is pretty good. I mean, a year ago, I was having even Red Crest last year, it got really, really bad. I don't want to turn it into a long story, but I've been having issues, honestly, ever since I moved to Guntersville. I ended up having the ambulance have to come to my RV. As I said earlier, I was living in my RV at the time until I was able to find a house down there. But I threw my back out in my RV, in my fifth wheel, with the doors locked, and I couldn't get to the door. And the ambulance was outside. I was in there screaming because it was out. It was the worst pain I'd ever been in, and I broke a lot of stuff on my body. And anyway, that kind of was the real trigger of it. And I had 2 ruptured discs, and I lived with it though for a long time. And then it just got worse and worse. And then last year at the beginning of the year, like I barely got through Red Crest. I barely fished last year. It was hard to move, and they went in and shot it up, gave me an epidural, put me out, gave me an epidural, shot me up with steroids, and said, "Oh, you'll be good to go after this." Well, that stuff wore off in 6 weeks, and I was having trouble. I would have to stretch and do yoga for 20, 30 minutes just to go to Waffle House. I mean,
well, I know
just so.
When we seen you last, though, you could tell that you was
was
hurting.
It was right before surgery. Yeah, it was just a daily chronic, like not. It was bad, and the thing was, they could never find out what was wrong. And then finally, I went to the doctors at Andrews Sports Center, which Major League Fishing hooked us up with. We have that option to go down there. And I drove down there, and I just told them, I said, "You guys are missing it." And I don't want to say you don't know what you're doing, but I kind of said that. I guess maybe I said you need to look again. You're missing something because this isn't normal. There's no way you can live in this much pain. Yeah. And they're like, "Well, they gave me some." I said, "No, we got it." So we figured it out, and once they saw it, that was on like a Wednesday, I want to say, that I was down there, and then literally I got a call Friday. They said, "Be in here Tuesday." It was that quick. Yeah. Like they found it, and then I was in. And no, I'm really good now. I don't know if I'll ever be 100%, but that's okay. I can pretty well do most. I definitely can live a normal life and not be in that much pain. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So
yeah.
I know still working on getting it stronger and things like that. But I mean, way better than where I was when I saw you guys. I know that.
Yeah. How about standing on the deck all day? Does that towards the end of the day, do you start feeling it a little bit from having to stand up all day?
Yeah, it's not so much the stand. I think it's just we do a lot more on a boat than people think. I don't want to say it's like grueling to be out there for 14 hours. I mean, it's just a longevity thing. And if you think about it, how many times you bend over, pick something up, kneel down, sitting down, jumping up, all that stuff. If your back's not, you don't have to be super in shape, obviously. But like if your back's not right, that will beat you down after a while. Right. All the little movements. There's a lot of other things I would rather there's a lot of other physical activities I'd rather done than go fishing, honestly, last year, because it just all the little moves, and it's hard to make a cast. It's hard to focus. So it was a lot. I appreciate you asking, but no, I think I'm a lot better. I'm trying to take care of it now. I've like I said, I've had a lot of injuries and nothing that was like this. This has been pretty bad, but I'm on the better side of it now, I think. So
that's awesome.
I can remember the post that you done or something like that. That you had the surgery or something like that, saying that you had the surgery. And I was like, heck yeah, he's going to be up ready to rock and roll after this. So.
Yeah, the doctor said 4 months. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot better. Definitely.
Yeah.
They wanted to say I'm going to be 100% in 4 months. I don't know if that's going to happen. Kind of like the same, deal that I was saying whenever I was trying to say, hey, there's something wrong here. They would. I don't know if it'd ever be 100, but way better than what it was. So take care of your backs, people. Like, there's certain things you can live without. The back isn't one of them.
Yeah.
No. So how's fishing going this year for you, though?
This year, I rolled into the season without fishing at all because of the back surgery. I was wondering if I would make it to Toledo Bend. Toledo Bend was terrible, as it should have been, to be honest. Like, I was lucky to get there. I should have stayed at the house, but no, it was good to at least get out there, mentally, just get out there and get back into it. I'm fit. I'm finished sitting right now in 56, which is the worst I've ever been on the BPT since it started. But we still got 2 tournaments to go. There's been a handful of things this year just hasn't. I just haven't done some things right. I've switched up some tackles, switched up some rods that cost me a lot, some fish that I probably would be looking at making 4 out of 5 checks pretty easily right now. I'm sitting at 2 out of 5. Right. Some tackle adjustments because, like I said, I wasn't able to fish going into the season. I made some changes with some stuff that I thought was going to be good for me. And it took me some time to vet it out that it's not good. Like I'm losing them. And I had to figure this stuff out as the season was going because
Yeah.
I didn't have an off season. I didn't get to go practice. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here making excuses by any means, but
Nah.
yeah, it's been a little rough. A lot of fish losses, a lot of irregular things that was not so normal in the last 5 years happened a lot this year. And it is what it is. I've learned from it, and I think the next 2 tournaments can be really good. And let's just keep rolling.
Yeah, keep at
Tomorrow's
it.
a new day. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked last week. We had DC and Alton Jones Jr. on.
That's cool.
And they we had them both on. We had DC on for 30 minutes, and then Alton came on. But we had them merge for about 10 minutes, and they were saying here the last 2 tournaments are going to be big position moving tournaments that it's going to be play critical on how like the point standings going to be.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've got 2 places that the scoping may or may not be as big of a factor, and clearly most of our tournaments that's been a big factor. Although the guys that are catching them, they're going to catch them regardless. You know what I mean? But it's definitely going to be a little different. I know James River, you're not going to run around with a scope. I mean, Drew Gill probably will. Wheeler, like those guys will to a degree, but it's going to be a lot harder than some of the places we've been. So it's going to be a little bit different. And anytime you get down to the end of the year, especially we don't have 9. The elites are 9 events, right?
Yeah.
You should know this, but it's 9. We only have 7. So, you get down to event 6 and 7 and you only fish 5 events now. I could still easily hop right back into Red Crest and still have an okay year, I guess, by my standards. If I just finish out probably with 2 top 20s, which is fairly easy to do if I get my crap together, hopefully. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving and shaking that can happen. And it could happen the other way, too. You could fall pretty easily, too.
Yeah.
But hopefully not. But, yeah, a lot of things are going to transpire in the next 2 events for sure.
So, and you got so you said you got James River, and where else is it?
James River, and then we're going to St. Lawrence.
Lawrence.
So back up there again. But with the all you can catch format on the St. Lawrence, especially now, the one time we was up there, we was there in the spawn, and the fish were shallow and spawning. I just missed the top 10. I think I finished 11th or 12th, catching just a lot of big, shallow smallmouth on the bed, not on the bed, didn't matter. It was insane. It's going to be interesting this time because they don't bite. You don't catch like super big numbers there now in August and September. So that'll be an interesting one too. So
yeah. So I think when y'all went to Toledo, that y'all missed it. I think by 2 to 3 weeks, and I mean it was still a good tournament and all to watch, but definitely the bigger ones were caught 2 to 3 weeks after that, if I remember correctly, this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought those guys caught him really dang good. I mean, like I said, I was just lucky to be there at that one. Not making an excuse. I probably wouldn't have caught him regardless anyway. I was I was very similar to what Jason Christie, Greg Hackney did for the BASS event 3 or 4 weeks later. I went up, got in some dirt, some dirtier water, shallow cover, that kind of deal, thinking these fish are either here or they're coming, any day, that whole thing. Nah. If you're not shaking a minnow, if you ain't shaking a minnow, you're not doing anything. I mean, that's pretty much what it was. I thought them guys blasted them really good. For any format, I thought it was pretty good. At least for the guys at the top. But I didn't follow it super close. I know I got my tail kicked and I was headed to the house pretty quick, trying to fish the way that I like to. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't there to be had. So
yeah, I just the reason why I say that I just remember like there was bigger fish. I think like when BASS was there, that they caught they were more into the spawn than when y'all were there.
Yeah, they hit it at a better time for sure, I think. I felt like looking at the schedule, because I was thinking, okay, Fletcher, you didn't catch them shallow this time, but in 2 or 3 weeks, that event's going to be wide open.
Yeah.
Well, no one did. Even then. The guys that fish like me had the same results as me even 3 weeks later, which kind of blew my mind, honestly.
Yeah.
Still blows my mind a little bit, like where them fish, why Toledo Bend in February, late February, why they weren't caught shallow somewhere on that system is strange to me. But That it still blows my mind. I don't know if there's a movement where fish just are staying out deeper right now. Is it the water level situation? But yeah, it was definitely weird between our event and watching the Bassmaster event. I don't know where that shallow bite was. It was non-existent
Right.
almost. You know,
Yeah,
I
I
thought
mean,
that was
because
strange.
if there's not a shallow water bite, I mean, especially John Cox, he's about done. If there, I mean, that's all he does is you will not see him out. I mean, away from the bank. I mean, and you were completely right. I mean, because that was one of the worst events that if
Yeah.
I remember that they did a little interview or he said something to Mercer and he said this has got to be one of the worst professional events that I've ever fished.
That kind of, I hate that for John, but it kind of makes me feel good because, we were obviously there first, and I was trying that crap, and it was not.
Yeah,
I still don't understand it. I understand maybe my timing wasn't the best. Our timing, we were still right there after a strong snowstorm. We had really good weather. Like it was
yeah,
70s in practice, if I remember right. Like it went from snowing before we got there to the trees and stuff starting to bloom, and that always happened. It was warm mornings for the most part, very little frost, and then hot days with sun. Like what happened to the bass that used to do the stuff they used to do? I don't know. And it
yeah.
didn't work for them with John too. So I don't know. It's very, very bizarre.
Yeah, even on Chick, they're like I'm not catching any. I mean, I'm catching small ones up shallow. Even like usually in years past, though, it's been to where after that spawn, you're going to have them transition out deep for a little bit, but then you'll have them move back up shallow, and all that I'm catching up shallow is about pound and a halfers. And if I want to catch something that's had to have a decent bag, I'm having to fish in 30, 40 foot of water.
Yeah, it's definitely that time of year. Like I mentioned earlier, I haven't spent a lot of time out there, but it's
Yeah,
definitely that time of year that if you're not out there on them drops and bars, I mean, I think it's for a 5 fish limit deal. Well, anything, honestly, anything.
yeah,
I think that's where the majority of the fish are going to be this time of year. If that current's moving, I feel like that's where I mean, it's hard to fight it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Gunnersville's a little bit different. Places that's got some grass, a lot of grass, it can be a little bit different, but it's really hard to fight. Those ledge fish the end of May, first couple weeks of June, obviously, from my
yeah,
experience. I don't like to fish that way very often. I've had some good tournaments, fishing ledge tournaments and things like that. I really don't want to, but if I had to fish Chickamauga tomorrow, that's where I'd be looking.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
may not like it, but that's probably what I would be doing.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I,
Just take a number and just get in line with everybody else on the
That's
lake.
now,
that's it. Get your drop shot out and pitch it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
now, I was going to say
Yep.
when you pre-practice or practice for a tournament, Fletcher, are when you first get to a lake, especially a lake that you haven't haven't spent a lot of time on, do you always try to get on something first before you start trying to just start going on the fly to trying to figure something out to fish your strengths? Or do you find that most events there's always a way that you could actually fish the way you like to fish before you actually have to change and start trying to figure something else out on the fly?
I get asked that question a lot, and there's really no good answer for it, I think, I guess is the best way to answer at this point, because everyone's a little bit different. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't want to say, oh, I always do it this way, or, I mean, typically a guy can fish his strengths for the most part. If you have a good, basically, whether you're, finesse fishing, whatever, especially the scope thing, obviously, is a big player.
Yeah.
If you're a flipper, you can find a way. There's so many different, even the shallow, like I consider Hot Defoe a shallow cranker, shallow winder. He
Yeah.
can usually find that deal. Typically, you can find, what you're
Right.
good at. I think for me, typically, what I'm trying to establish early on, obviously, I want to catch them the way I want to catch them, but really, I'm just trying to find where there's groups of fish, and trying
Right.
to figure out where the dang fish are more so than I'm worried about if I'm going to catch them flipping or winding or top water or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get around figuring out where the fish are in the system, whatever that may be. For instance, we just got back from the Chowan River, and that was a wild one because there's some information on it, but honestly, when I look back on it, wasn't a whole lot of information that was helpful.
Yeah.
That was public, that was helpful because a lot of the stuff that you saw was in February, March, April, and the fish were more back in places and whatever. And they ended up being way out on the main, which isn't surprising, right? But at the same time, I don't know if there's dolphins that swim out in that main basin and
Yeah.
shark, or if they're bass, and you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
that was kind of a weird one. So I guess to answer your question, it always just varies so much. And that one I had to like change every single day. Like the first day I started out in the creeks, then I caught some in the back of one creek. So the second day I run the backs of every creek in the system that I could fish, and exhausted myself and didn't catch crap. So then the third day I'm like, okay, now I get out on the main river, caught a couple decent ones. First day I think I was like third or something in the first period. But fishing kind of new water, like on like fishing the current stuff, Maine, and then I just kept happening to it. Then by the second day, I had to keep adapting, keep changing. So I guess it's always different, but just trying to figure out where they live at is the biggest, where the most active fish are and where they're at is always my biggest goal going into a place. So
now was that a tidal fishery?
See, it's tidal, but because it's so far away from the ocean, which I should have realized that, hey, there's probably bass out in the bays or out in the main basin because it is so far away from the ocean. But once again, when you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
And you hate, when you're out spending that much, when that much is on the line, it's really hard to gamble against everything that you kind of go into it. I know they catch them in them dang rivers. Somewhere it's going to happen. I'm not going to gamble and change the plan too much, when there's just that much on the line and just run out into the middle of the basin somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I kept trying to make that work, but dude, at the end of the day, that was the deal. But it was just so, it gets to be a point where you can't risk everything. It's one of them risk reward type of situations. But
Right.
but yeah, it was so far away from the ocean. To answer your question about the tide, it was so far away. I think the tide affected the current flow, but I think it was more of a wind tide situation affecting it more probably than anything, is what I noticed. So the wind's pushing against it, the water would stay in, the current would slow, and stay a couple inches higher. But if the wind pushed out, it'd drop a couple inches and the current would pick up. I think it was more about just activating them with that current. You know what I mean? Because there was a couple days they did not bite. I just think it was a current thing, honestly.
Right.
So
yeah. That makes
no current, no
sense.
bass, no different than TBA or anything else.
I was about to say it's about like just going here. If it ain't moving, you're not moving.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
especially them fish were real bad about it though. I mean, you could really tell it on the score tracker at times when they shut down. It was like the whole dang system,
the whole field
was off.
Yeah,
it was wild. It was really wild. So definitely wind, tide, or whatever it was. The moon, who knows? But it was a timing thing.
Yeah.
Do
you like fishing like blue heron lakes?
That is one thing I will say I have very little experience on.
Yeah.
Very little. From the schedules that I've fished over the years, I have fished very minimal. I mean, Smith has bluebacks in it. But I will say this, that's one thing that forward-facing sonar has changed so much. I'm not saying a guy that's a blueback expert couldn't do better, but if you're really good at active target, forward-facing sonar, whatever, I feel like it takes a lot of that need to know knowledge out of a lot of them situations too, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know
you know where to look, and you know what to look for with your screen, and you cover enough water,
Yeah. Because what was it? Bass was it Murray that not too long ago? And
yes.
They were following the heron, the blueback heron, and what was crazy to me watching it was how many people was just standing on the deck of their boat just waiting for them to just blow up on the top water, and then they're chunking. They're not throwing in between times. They're just waiting on that for the bass to just blow up on them, and then they're just chunking it in there, and that's when they would catch it. Sometimes they'd have to wait 20, 30 minutes or however long until they can get. And they were just power poled down off a point and just facing out towards the channel. And they were just scanning, just watching. And if it happened, they blew up where they can get a cast at them, they were throwing at it. And I was like, I'm used to going out there and throwing 1,200, 1,500 times a day, just casting. And then I guarantee you that Jason Christie did not throw 300 casts in that tournament.
You're right on that one. You're right on that one. Yeah, that was wild. But at the same time, I think when those guys know that those herring fish are so dang smart and so keyed in on that
Yeah.
that they know if they're throwing around and if they come up, if you don't get a bait in their face and trick them that
Right.
fast,
And
you're
it
not
has to
going
be like right as soon as you see it. I mean, as soon as it happens, you have to get that bait right in there to it.
Yeah, they have to be in that frenzy mode and throw it right in the middle of them.
And that tells you how smart they are, is what that tells me.
Right.
I think those guys figured that out pretty quick. Yeah, that was pretty wild to watch. And that was a situation where the forward facing sonar obviously didn't play very much at all, which is a little surprising to me. I think that was, I don't know how often they do it on. Once again, I don't know, but I don't know if they're like that too many months out of the year on Murray, But definitely they were that week, obviously. So
is there let's talk about scheduling wise. Would you want to have more tournaments, and if so, how many tournaments would you want to have, and where else would like to see the Bass Pro Tour go and hit some fisheries?
So I think they've got it pretty good with the schedule. I mean, you need to make the championships. Heavy Hitters is an awesome event. Yeah. Red Crest is great. This is the first year I missed both of them, obviously after last year. So if you make those, it's 9 events. You figure in, which we used to have cup events that were TV shows. You know what I mean?
Right.
We used to have. I was fishing. I know there for 3 or 4 years. Catching them decent. I was qualified for everything. It was like 12 events a year. And I felt like that was about right. That was pretty, and it definitely wasn't too many, but it was enough to keep everyone happy,
Right.
Where we're sitting at right now, for me, regular season 7 isn't quite enough, but that's my fault. That's right. My fault for not qualifying for the championship events. So I'd say we could use a little more, but, it's a give and take kind of thing. And as far as scheduling, people probably think I just want to go to nothing but places that I can flip and fish dirty water, or whatever. Yeah. Yes, I absolutely like that, but I kind of like a mix too, because you'll throw in a situation. Well, I was laughing yesterday when we were fishing Smith. I said, I knew I was going to get dead last in that tournament a couple of years ago. And shoot, I almost won my round. I think me and Michael Neal was going toe to toe at the end, to win our round to advance to the championship round at that point, So there's some ones too, that I've got to like I said, if I was on Chick right now in June, I know what I have to do. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to have to go do it. And there's some of them ones for me have been the most surprising events over the years, is the ones where I know, hey, you're not going to be able to go do it the way you like to. Go do it the way you have to do it this week. And then I stumble onto some things and figure it out. So I like a good mix. I will say this, and I'm not anti-forward facing sonar whatsoever, but I do think both Bass MLF needs a mix of events, or try to make a mix of events.
Yeah.
Not so much even for the anglers, but for the fans. You want to see a little bit of variety. That's the one thing about it that I don't like, is it does seem like the same old thing, even though techniques may be a little different. They may set it up a little bit. If you're staring down at the screen or staring down at the screen, that's fun. I just think that I feel like MLF did a good job this year of making the events different, or, so we have different options. We have a good variety of things instead of just scoping the whole time, the whole year.
Right.
So I feel like that hurts our viewership,
Yeah.
So I think that having a good mix of the sonar thing, I guess at the end of the day, is probably the answer on the scheduling for me.
Now, is there a lake that the BPT has not been to that you would like to see on the schedule that you'd love to go to? That hasn't.
We've been to some we've been to some really good ones, and a lot of the ones I say are the smaller lakes that no one knew about. For instance, Chowan River. That was an awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was a really cool event. Kind of it was an unknown place nationally, and that was super cool. Yeah, it was one scoping.
I never heard of that place until the BPT announced it.
Yeah, but it was cool to watch, actually watch, because it kind of gets mundane when you see them like every year. I mean, everybody would start down in Florida, hit Okeechobee, then the Harris Chains, and that kind of got boring. And then both, the Bass Pro Tour and Bass flipped it around to where they did not hit that first this year.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. I really was. But I think we got really lucky on the scheduling of that. I don't know if you can do that 2 years in a row. I say that because I was, Red Crest a couple years ago was scheduled for Palestine and Texas in late February, whatever it was, and the lake froze solid.
Yeah.
We had Lake Fork, I think, in like beginning of March, and that was the one where cameramen, boats were so frozen. A couple of guys quit during the one day. Like it was ice all over the roads, and we're trying. So yeah, Florida may be a little bit boring and mundane, but like realistically, I don't know how many times you get the weather we've had. I feel like we've had a pretty warm spring. I feel like we did. Overall, it's pretty mellow, pretty good, and I just mark my words. I hope I'm wrong. If we do that deal again, I'm afraid we're looking at more ice and snow and whatever comes with that. If we stay out of Florida to start the year, and I'm down for whatever, but that's the risk you take for sure. I know that when we got Red Crest moved to Eufaula, it was kind of a disaster, and it wasn't anyone's fault other than there was an ice storm, 100-year ice storm in Texas, and it threw all everyone's plans off, So that's the risk you take with running anywhere north of Florida in February, even halfway into March. I mean, it's just you're running that risk. So
now, what are you going to have to do to be able to be fishing Gunnersville at Red Crest next year?
2 top 20s, I think. I could sit down and do the math. But yeah, I just need to execute a plan, land the fish that bite. If I'm not winning, that just catch every fish, Fletcher. Like I've just done a very poor job of executing. I've spent a lot of time staring down at my screen. I'm just good enough at it to like want to do it, and I've had just enough success to think I can continue doing it. And then this year I just haven't been able to get it going, and I have to rely on the stuff that I've always relied on, and had some tackle things that I've made some adjustments on that wasn't right. I just got to land what I can, just put together a good plan and go execute. I'm definitely not going to overthink the next couple. That's for sure. I think St. Lawrence will be interesting with the largemouth dynamic there because we have a 2-pound minimum.
Right.
That's going to be interesting. I don't know what to think. I mean, I think everyone would know I'd like to catch largemouth over the smallmouth, but like that'll be a very interesting thing to see how that really shakes out.
Right.
Now,
if a guy can go catch, if you go down there and a guy can catch 35 largemouth and they're all 2 to 4 pounds, I mean, you better be on one hell of a smallmouth hole or two to keep up with. I think, based on my experience there and what I've seen of the place. But it'll be very interesting to say the least.
So when you're flipping and like, what do you have on? Like, are you flipping a 1 ounce? Like bullet weight and stuff like that, and like what kind of line do you have, and what rod are you like? Is it a extra heavy rod or whatever? What is your setup for when you're flipping?
Yeah, without going like super in depth on everything, basically I like a longer rod. I've been using a 711, the same. I've had like 8 flipping sticks for the last several years. 711. It's called a heavy, but man, it's a pretty moderate. I mean, it's a very limber rod. I mean, it's soft tip, very limber. Use that same rod for a long time. When I first started using that rod, I didn't like it because it was too soft, but I adapted to it because I found the benefits in it. I found the benefits of that softer rod, that more moderate action, especially when you hook big ones and you get them to the side of the boat. I just didn't really lose them. Once I figured out the system, and I'm using a braid to a fluorocarbon leader or straight braid all the time. I'll never go straight fluorocarbon anymore for a number of reasons. But I like that bigger rod, and it's more cumbersome. I'm not as accurate with it as I would say be with a 7.3 or a 7.6. I get more tired with the 711 in your hand, but it just, for me, it makes up for mistakes that, you may go on a day and you may catch every flip fish that bites you. Yeah. But then there's some days where you pitch up to that, if it's a cypress knee, dock post, whatever, and that joker starts swimming at you or takes off racing to the side. Maybe you looked away for a second because someone yelled at you, whatever. And you look back and you have to make up ground on this fish. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And if you're holding a 6.6 or a short rod, you ain't catching it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that 711 makes that, and especially the braid, the rod length. I catch most of those fish that I feel like I used to miss all the time, especially with straight fluorocarbon. And so I just like that bigger stuff. But I actually switched up tackle this year after surgery, tried to go to a different 8-foot flip stick, thinking it was identical to what I had, and it wasn't. And
Right.
I didn't figure that out. I went out fishing. I got so bothered by it. I got back from Eufaula and I said, I'm going to fish every day on Chick, and I'm going to do nothing but fish. I'm going to catch every single fish that bites, and I'm going to get my confidence back that I can do this. Because I just thought it was me. And
Right.
I went out 2 days. I couldn't catch it. Finally, I lost a 6 on a willow or a cypress out there, and she just opened her mouth and spit it. And I went back and watched. I had my GoPro and I looked at it. I'm like, dude, this. I went and like loaded the rod that I was using and checked it all out. I'm like, this joker's way too soft. You're an idiot. Let's go back to what you used to use. Like, so so you can miss stuff like that, I guess. I mean, that, but having the right system, and then I do want to say this though too, like what I use is not what everyone else should use, right? Like I love the braid, the fluoro. That may not be for everybody. You know what I mean? So everyone's got a different way of doing things, and if it works for you, it works for you. But be very cautious of varying off something that works for you. That's my advice.
Yeah. Now, what do you tie? What kind of knot do you tie when you're going from braid to fluoro?
I just tie an Alberto. It's super strong. One of my biggest issues, and people have issues, like when I talk to even Andy Morgan about going to a braid to fluoro, you just have it in your mind that knot is going to break. You think that's your weak spot, you know? And I always thought that. And man, I've done it Justin Lucas got me on that deal in 2016, 15, and I don't ever break the knot. If you're breaking the knot, that's on you, and you just need to spend a little bit more time learning it. You will break your line easier. You will break your fluorocarbon leader easier. Absolutely, though. If you don't have that figured out, the right fluorocarbon line, the right leader length, with the right rod, with the right hook set, it's not as cut and dry as, oh, just go use this vicious fluorocarbon, you'll never break off. I'd love to tell you that, but that's not the case. There's a lot of little things. Like I said, I could go into that for an hour, but so that system's definitely been very good for me. But it's definitely high maintenance. You have to retie your entire leaders a lot. That's why I said I like to have 8 flipping sticks, and I use all of them in a day. Sometimes I'd use six rods in a period. And fortunately, we get period breaks, right? So I'll sit down, and I can usually do 5 to 6 leaders in 15 minutes, and I'm right back fishing again. But as soon as a leader gets nicked, if something happens, put it down, put it on, get it out of the way so I don't accidentally pick it up, and roll with the fresh one, And when you're doing that, and for me, a lot of it too is like when I'm skipping around, skip pitching, I like to call it, or whatever, man, I just like the braid. If that fluoro is always ratting up in your thumb and getting loops, and braid is just so smooth and consistent to roll off the reel. It's just effortless, And then when you do get a bite, like you're instant, you don't have to hit him perfectly because you don't have the stretch, right? So if you can keep from breaking your line, you learn to tie the knots. Like I said, it's more high maintenance. But for a guy that wants to flip a lot, I think it's the way to go. And I know Andy Morgan, I know he tried it last year, and I'm pretty sure he's still on it. So I'd say it works pretty good.
Yeah. Now, does your flipping setup change like when you're in South Florida, like on an Okeechobee? Are you still going braid to fluorocarbon, or do you go straight braid on those big cover type lakes when you're flipping?
So the best way to put it, there's times where I would do a fluorocarbon leader down there, like around buggy whips and stuff like that. Sometimes in pads, I feel like I get them out better with fluorocarbon. Just if it cut, just depending on the situation. If my braid's cutting real bad into the vegetation, I'll go to a fluorocarbon leader. But 90% of the time, if I'm fishing around any vegetation, I just go straight braid. I just keep it easy. And here's the biggest reason for it is because if I'm around vegetation, I know that typically it's not going to cut my line, right? There's no rocks or zebra mussels typically in grass or reeds and pads to cut your line. The reason why I do the fluorocarbon leader is not so much for a visibility reason. If I want to say Chickamauga or Dale Hollow or whatever, it's an abrasion thing because fluorocarbon can handle the abrasion way better than braid can. And it has a little bit of stretch. So it's not going to, you take 50-pound braid and go rub it up against a rock a couple of times. You now have 6-pound braid real fast. And it's always hard to check braid. You can't just run your fingers down it and say, oh, well, this is bad, I got to retie. You'll look at it, you can rub your fingers up and down, but you don't know it's 6-pound test anymore because you can't really see where it's cut at, and then you set the hook and break it. It's so easy. So that's the main reason why I like to run the leaders. Not a visibility thing as it is an abrasion resistance thing around the cover that I'm fishing. But in grass, I'll just go straight braid because I don't worry about the abrasion, I don't worry about breaking my line in the grass. So
Right.
So does does the longer rod, does it help with, like, let's say you're pitching a docks that has a bunch of pylons on it or something like that, and you know how now every dock now they try to keep the guys from fishing up underneath it, so they put the crisscross deal. Does the longer rod, is that going to help you to be able to get that bass out of there a whole lot quicker than, let's say, a 7.3, 7.6?
no, so okay, in that situation that you're talking about, I'm a 7.3 guy. If I got to get up under tight spaces, under docks, and the water's up and all that stuff,
Right.
yeah, I'm just going to go with a 7.3 because I can't be as accurate and skip pitch as good with the longer rod. So I just
Okay,
go
I
with a
gotcha.
7.3, and it's a lot lighter. And here's the one thing to answer your question. I like when I'm around. If I've got to fish tight docks, I'm going to go to a 7.3. But I feel like going to that longer rod too, I've broke my line less, and you would think it would be the opposite. It's almost like I almost feel like maybe my reaction, my rod's swing speed isn't quite as fast because it's a bigger, heavier rod. But
Right.
also, if you'll notice where a lot of times where you start to put pressure on the fish on a longer rod, it's not as at an acute angle as, say, if you got a real short rod and I crack the line, it's a real
Yeah.
sharp angle and it's a
Right.
real quick snap. But if I've got a longer rod, now I'm picking up so much line, then the rod, that 8-foot rod's got a
It's
soft
loading
tip.
up. Right.
It's loading and your line's not getting as much shock as
Right.
you would with a shorter rod. It's kind of weird. At least for me, it's been that way. But yeah, around them
Right.
tight spaces, man, it is cumbersome. It's a pain. But if I can use the big rod, even around docks, if there's a foot of water or 2 foot of water, the water's a little bit low on pole docks or whatever, I'll use my 8-footer or a
Right.
7-11,
Right.
Right.
just because of the advantages of it. But if I can't get into places, I always got that 7.3 ready.
Right.
You got to do what you got to do,
Yeah. Now, how did you go? I know me and Norman had talked to you about this, but how did you go from motocross to fishing professionally?
So my dad used to always race drag bikes when we were little and traveled across the country. He didn't do it professionally. He was really good. He won a championship, did some things, racing drag bikes. But as a kid, we'd always be in the pits, and I didn't enjoy the drag bike racing. I was so young, but I always wanted to ride the dirt bikes and stuff around the pits because everyone always had a bike to run around. Just like I got one, I go to the mailbox, take my trash out. Everyone had a mini bike to run around. So I learned and liked to ride then. And then I'd go to school and kids were starting to ride. That was kind of like a cool thing. So, but I was big into fishing before I was ever into motocross I'm sorry. Yeah, I was big into fishing before I ever got into the motocross. I was always wanting to fish. Whenever I was young, that's all I wanted to do was fish.
Right.
But then once we got around the races and the dirt bike things kind of become cool, especially with the chicks and stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, you wanted to get them
Gotcha.
scars, so so I got into the motocross deal more and more, and then I just got super obsessed with it. My brother got involved with it, and I raced for I don't know 12 years. I raced some pro stuff. I made a Supercross main event, which I mean, looking back on it, it's kind of a big deal, But I never was like super good. I was never going to get paid to race. I was trying. Just something that didn't come naturally to me. I had to work really, really hard at it, and I feel
Right.
like fishing has come. Not that I'm great, but like fishing's come a lot easier to me because I fished tournaments for local tournaments for 2 years, or call it a year and a half. And then I was bored in Ohio the one winter. And I'm like, I want to go fishing, but if I'm going to go fishing, I want it to be worth my time. I was just kind of
Right.
that way. I'm super competitive. So I'm going to fish this Bassmaster Open. And went down to Florida. So I had no business, guys. I mean, I literally fished tournaments for not even 2 years locally in Ohio in some mud hole ponds. You know what I mean? That has
Yeah.
no similarities to Florida at all. Like, I go down there and got beat pretty good. And then the next one was at Lake Norman. I'm like, nah, I'm out on that stuff. That was a waste of money and time. And I didn't have a bunch of money. So my buddy talked me into like, just go do one more. Norman, which he was right. Norman's a lot more like what you're used to up in Ohio, and signed up and won.
Yeah.
And went on at the next one, went to Douglas Lake, never caught a fish on a big crankbait in my life. Went down there and caught him cranking, made a top 10 or top 12 or whatever it was at the time. I think I made 3 of the 6 top 12s that year in the Bass Opens. I made the Classic out of the Southern, and I made the Elites out of the Northern division just because I just kept taking the money and rolling it. Like, I didn't
Right.
even plan to fish all the Northerns. I just fished one and be like, I did pretty good. We'll fish another one. Hey, you can make the elites if you fish one more. I think I went to Oneida was the last one. I had to finish ninth. And like, which I haven't told this story in a long time, but like I had to finish ninth. It was literally, I had like 3 fish in the box with 5 minutes to go. I flipped 2 smallmouth out of a milfoil patch with minutes to go, stuffed them in the box, ran in, went to the Bass Pro Shops, finished ninth, made the Elite Series.
Wow.
And here we are,
Yeah.
still had to fish the classic, fish the classic the next year. Had a pretty good start to my season. I would have made the classic that year if I wouldn't have done a 6 fish. I wouldn't have made a bonehead move and had 6 fish in my box at Mississippi River. I'd have made the classic my first year, And I
Yeah.
hadn't fished tournaments. That was my third year fishing. No, fourth year now fishing tournaments. So, but dude, it was kind of easy early on. That's why I was saying the racing was hard, came hard to me. The fishing
Right.
came easier.
Yeah.
Not that
It's
fishing's
more
easy.
natural. Right.
It was just a little more natural for me. Yeah, I didn't have to
Yeah.
try as hard to get the results. So
Yeah.
that makes
Now,
it nice.
right. Now, how competitive are you and Hunter?
I'm not that competitive with him. I think he might be a little bit because I'm the older brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Now,
want him to win everything. Like
yeah.
that's kind of a weird thing. I think a lot of brothers are that way. Granted, at the end of the day, if we're fishing against each other straight up head to head, yeah, I don't want to defeat him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm not really like
Yeah.
super into that.
And quick story about Hunter is we got a chance to hang out with Hunter a little bit on Media Day at the Bassmaster Classic. Got a good interview with him. And one of the questions we asked him was, did he have anybody in the sport before he started fishing professionally that he looked up to in the sport? And he had mentioned you, that you were his inspiration for actually following in your footsteps. And we also end the show with a certain question: who would you like to have on your boat? If you could have one person fish with you for the day, and he also had mentioned you, he wants to get back out on the water with you. So we thought that was pretty cool that he actually said he looked up to you going into starting his career.
Yeah, no, that is super cool. Yeah, we've helped each other a ton over the years. I mean,
Yeah.
he goes out and I mean, when he first started, it was kind of funny. I was fishing the elites because I'd had some. I guess at the time, if you looked at what I was doing, like it looked like I really had it together. You know what I mean? From the outside looking in, I mean, guys are coming up to me like, "Oh, that's that Shryock dude." Like, and looking at what I was doing, it was pretty strong. But I was just on a roll. I took very basic techniques and that, which I still got to remind myself of the day. Like I did, all the tackle I owned was in my boat. I didn't make
Right.
it complicated. I'd go throw a Yamamoto Senko under a tree, under a dock, go out and flip around and like throw it. But I would also do things that I had to do, like at Douglas Lake. I'd pick up a big plug and go out. I was just very young and like young minded, I want to say, not necessarily young, but about everything that I did, and it just worked. And it was so funny. I look back
Right.
on that so many times. But Hunter started him my first year on the elites, and I was already had a tournament partner at the time at home, that I fished with consistently. And Hunter, I didn't know if Hunter was going to fish the next week or not. He just started fishing, you know what I mean? And guys, it wasn't very long, and he started winning. Like, and
Right.
he would do stuff. He would do stuff like there was when the Alabama rig become a thing, but no one in Ohio is catching them on an Alabama rig. It's a lot of small
Right.
bait, a lot of things like that. Not saying the guys don't, but he was like one of the first ones that went up there and go do that. And then it was like, yeah, jerkbait's a player in the wintertime or whatever, but no one really did that. Well, we started doing that. He figured that stuff out, and he kind of taught me, and I taught him. Of course, we didn't share much on the Alabama rig because I couldn't throw it, but it was very interesting. The fish he was like we just have always learned so much off of each other
Yeah.
Yeah.
back and forth, kind of, you know what I mean? Giving
Right.
each other tasks or giving each other ideas, and then one of us would figure out whether it's a good or bad idea.
Right.
So it's been cool to work
Right.
with him from that, and then to watch
Yeah.
him like and kind of coach him to make the elites. I don't want to say I coached him because I don't want to take the credit for it at all. Yeah, just kind of helping him through the elite series was pretty cool, and watching that process
Right.
that was awesome. So
And that was one thing I was about to say is watching both of y'all through the years. I mean, you can see the growth in both of y'all here the past few years. Um, that I mean to me is I just like watching people just come and just enhance their abilities in the sport, and I could see that both of y'all had definitely had grown over the past 4 or 5 years or whatever that I really started watching y'all, and it's just been pretty cool to watch. I enjoy watching, especially when y'all have a camera on the boat.
Thank you. No, that means a lot, man. Seriously, thank you. I know I definitely got to give a lot of credit to him too. I feel like, come even the elite, like I don't know, I've just really fell off the last call it year, but a lot of it's health
Yeah,
issue. I hate to even, guys, I hate to say it. I'm 38. I don't feel like I'm that old. Here I am having these health issues, and yeah, it's affected me. It has,
yeah,
Right.
but yeah, the last year for me hasn't been good. But yeah, for him, he's been really solid. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I think, well, I will say he missed the classic. Was it last year or the year before by one spot? But hey,
yeah.
he missed
Year
about, I
before.
Year
mean, you know
before,
what I
and
mean?
Knoxville,
Like
yeah,
it's been pretty dang, yeah, it's been pretty dang impressive. And
Yeah.
he's on another one this year. I would say if he does another good event, he'll be top 20 in points on the Elite
Yeah.
Series.
yeah. I
That's
was about
Well,
to
pretty dang
say
strong.
he's pretty much got the classic locked up for next year, as long as he doesn't tank. Then,
yeah.
because what they got Wheeler, and I think they got 2 more after this, maybe 3 more. I think that's after this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd say he's in good shape. I would
Yeah,
almost consider him a lock. Don't tell him that
Yeah.
because you don't need to mess up. But
No,
right, right.
no,
it's
I
just
think
been
he's
really
right.
solid. So,
Yeah.
and I
Now,
feel like I fished solid this year. Minus Toledo Bend was a bad deal. I haven't executed, but that's on me. Like that's not sitting here. I don't. You can't. That's one thing about the sport. If you're always blaming something or excuses, you don't take it upon yourself to fix it. It's not going to get fixed.
yeah.
Right.
So that's for sure.
Uh, we got a guy named Jim. He's asked. He says, Fletcher, do you learn from watching or YouTube using a bait, or would you rather just go and put it in your hands?
I want to watch it, and nowadays, I want to watch it on YouTube first. If it's something new, I want to watch it. I definitely, yeah,
Right.
it's very helpful. Now, I will say it depends on what you're watching though.
Yeah.
You got also some of that stuff can lead you in the wrong direction at the same time.
Real fast.
It's kind of like the first bite you get in practice, and that's what I was saying earlier about the Chowan River. I found a creek that had them. Well, that was the only creek in the whole place that had them. It wasn't
Yeah.
the deal, right? So like this maybe a guy's catching them on YouTube and he says this is the only way to do it. So just watch your sources, but it's
Yeah.
definitely your time is definitely better spent watching film, I think, current time, watching film, understanding it, but you can't replace going out on the water and doing it. So it takes both.
Right.
I guess I should say the film is important if you need to have somewhat of an understanding. But at the end of the day, you still have to get out there and execute it. You still have to gauge your confidence level at a certain technique or whatever that may be for you to know when it's game time to know whether to do that or not do that. Yeah, maybe
Right.
everyone else is catching them on a jerk bait, but maybe I'm not good at jerk bait, which I
Yeah.
would say I'm more the minnow. I struggle more with the minnow than I really
Yeah.
have. I feel like I'm there now, or better now. But that was one thing as much YouTube stuff as I watched, I could never figure out what I know now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I had
Right.
to go out there and let them follow to the boat 600 times a day and not catch them and whatever, and until you know what I mean, until it gets easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the answer to that is it definitely doesn't. Yeah, watching
Yeah.
film is definitely important.
Now,
Yeah.
do you do a lot of pre-practicing in the off season at locations you're going to be the following season before the off limit start, or not so much?
That's another one of them like pre-tournament things. It depends. Some of them tournaments we have, some of the Florida events, I feel like if it's an event that I can go and fish and spend time and it's going to benefit me, I'll go spend 10 days. If
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's going to set up similar or there's a chance of it setting up similar, I will go put in the time if I'm pretty sure it's going to set up that way.
Right.
But there's
Yeah.
other ones that it's absolutely pointless and it's really it's a bad idea to go spend much
Yeah.
time because
Right.
it's going to change. And if you don't, for instance, James River, I've been there before. I've seen the place. I have a rough knowledge of the layout. If I go over there and fished a bunch last month, and those fish are more post spawn, they're going to be definitely obviously summer
Right.
now, like,
Right. Right.
when we get there. But I feel like if I'd have been there a month ago, shoot, there was probably still fish spawning
Yeah.
potentially. And then you go over there and you spend a bunch of time figuring something out, and you will run. I've done this so many times years ago. You will run the first day to 2 days running what you thought you needed to run in your head, and they will show you all the signs that they are not on that deal, but you can't get it out of your head, you can't shake it, and you have put yourself further behind by fishing the month prior than what you put yourself ahead. Then there's other situations where, Florida, different situations where it could definitely help you too. But it's really hard to understand all that until you kind of travel the country and see how those places set up and understand the history of some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert at it, but I feel like I can gauge. If you show me a schedule, I can kind of tell you which ones are going to be the ones to work hard at and the ones that you don't even waste your time going to.
Yeah. Now, how
I'm not
hard,
giving you guys many concrete answers. I don't know if this is any good, but I'm
but how hard or easy is it for you if you go to an event that you have been successful at in the past? How hard or easy is it for you to throw the memory out the window and not try to get too wrapped up in how you fished in the past, knowing that it might be different?
To fish the moment.
Yeah.
That can be hard. I think there's just certain lakes that we all jive with. It's not just me. I think that's just most people that I've noticed. There's certain places. Bass act a little different in every body of water. We know that.
Yeah.
And I think there's certain people that jive with certain fisheries. And I think typically it's not super hard for me to shake history, but if it's a place I just jive with, I can figure them out regardless. You could drop me on the south end or what, you know what I mean? But there's certain places that we don't jive with, and it doesn't work out very well regardless, because you just aren't on the same page with them. You know what I mean? So
now what lake, we've asked this to quite a few anglers, and I'll, after you answer, I'll tell you, because I want to see if it's the same. We've had this whole thing, the same thing said multiple times, and I'll tell you after.
And I know where he's going with this one too.
What lake, is there a lake that has your number?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which one it is. Gosh dang, you asked me too fast.
Sorry.
No, I'm trying to think where. I'd have to look at my schedule, actually. There's a couple of them that are out there that I absolutely. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Like, St. Lawrence is not good for me. Hasn't been good for me. I spent 2 weeks up there last fall because I thought we were going with 5 fish again for Major League Fishing, because we did that last year. So I went up there and I made 2 trips, spent like 2 weeks up there trying to figure out, and it's not like it's rocket science, but it's one of the things I never understood very well. Catching them smallmouth in that raging, ripping current, because it's different than any other current that I've ever fished. I feel like I'm a decent current, not good, but I'm a decent current river fisherman. That's a whole other animal up there. It's a whole different, everything about that's different. And I spent a lot of time working on that. So, but we go back this year with a 2-pound minimum. I feel like I might be able to go fish largemouth, but then I figured enough out about the smallmouth too. I don't know. We'll see. But that's been a place that's had my number. When we went there, if we go there when they're shallow, I feel like I'm a top 10 guy. If we go there whenever they're deeper, it's ugly. But if we could get me out on the lake, that's a whole nother ballgame. But every time I go up there, whether it's bass or MLF, I've only been allowed to go to the lake one time, and that was when Polinick ran all the way out there and won. Yeah. I'm more of a lake guy up there. If I could go out there, I'd feel a lot better about it. But I'd say the St. Lawrence is how my number. I got 11th or 12th last time we were there, but that was shallow stuff. So, and you can still catch them shallow in August, but man, it's hard. They're tricky, and there's not very many of them. So,
well, we have asked that to multiple anglers, and I think we've had like 3 or 4 people say, I don't have a lake, I have a state. And they're like, Florida has my number. It's not just a lake, it's just Florida.
I wish we could fish every event in Florida, but if I had it my way, that's what we would do.
Well,
but that's the funny part about that is, like, some guys hate it, some guys love it. Like, there's guys at St. Lawrence that's probably never finished outside the top 20. They just love it. They just understand it. They jive with it. It doesn't matter what's going on. They're going to make it happen. Drop them anywhere on that system. They have a vibe for where to go. You know what I mean?
Especially if your last name's Johnson.
Yeah, right. That's a little bit different story. I think there's some places you go to when you're not a local. Like, there's some guys that just jive well with places. Yeah. Those guys obviously jive well and they're local. So that's a bad combination if you're fishing against them. I know that.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, you go up there, they have no problem of beating you down and taking your money either. So
yeah, there's no question about that.
So, Is there? We won't have. We'll just ask a few more questions and then we'll let you get off of here. We don't want to hold you too much
No,
longer.
you're fine. No, you're fine.
Is there? Have you been able to get to fish with or against somebody that you looked up to growing up?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like this whole thing's been like a dream, to fish against all the guys I fished against from the start.
Right.
It's kind of weird now. Like I guess it just comes with time and age, whatever. Like, you're starting to see. I feel like I'm in that middle part of my career where I'm seeing a lot of the guys that I really looked up to are retiring, fading away, and you're seeing the new guys come in, and I'm in that in between. It's different. I don't know how to, and I've really noticed it more this year than ever. But I'll say this: them kids are dang good, with or without a scope or whatever. Guys, all the haters want to say, yeah, there's some things that they may shouldn't have done or whatever. But man, those kids are dang good, that are coming in. So that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and
there's definitely. I hated to see Van Dam retire. That definitely. It's just not the same without some of those guys around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to discredit the new guys, but it's hard to replace KVD. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, when you like with him and like Rick Clunn and stuff like that, whenever Rick decides to hang it up, I mean, he may fish another 20 years at this rate that he's going. But yeah,
he probably will.
But seeing when Kevin came out and said that he was going to hang it up, and it surprised me when I heard about it. I was not expecting to hear him say that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't really want to comment too much about it, but yeah, no, it sucks. I think for the sport, it just sucks to see him move on with it. And who's to say he doesn't come back? I don't know. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think that's his style, but it's possible.
Yeah. Well, he said he's going to be busier now than when he was competing too, because
I think he probably is. And I think it'll be interesting though, just knowing that dude. Like even before I got to know him, and once you get to know him, like I don't know if he's going to be able to stay gone. I don't know. And I'm not trying to say he'll come back, but it just sucks to see, and I'm not just talking Kevin. There's been several guys that I used to fish against with. And I think I was very fortunate when I started on the BPT. I mean, I felt like at that time, that was the most studded field you could ever assemble, at least maybe in my lifetime, of putting all the guys from tours, putting them all together in one tournament trail and just saying, let's have at it. That was pretty cool. The first couple of years of that was badass.
Yeah.
Definitely was thankful to be a part of that. I fished so much like before leading up to that and at that time. Like it was just a really fun time.
Yeah. Now, do you prefer or do you like just like how you weigh and release, catch, weigh, release? Do you like that, or do you miss having the bag and crossing the stage and weighing the fish?
I don't think I've given you guys a straightforward answer yet this whole time. Both. I like putting the fish back. Number one, it's good for the fish, right? You're not moving them. You're not killing them. They're back. They're healthy. Everything's fine. Number two, I don't like having to keep them alive. I don't like having to worry about it. I don't like my boat stinking. My boat hasn't stunk in like 5 or 6 years. Like that's weird. We're not allowed to hit the carpet, and we don't put them in the box, so your boat doesn't smell. So that's good. Yeah. But man, I miss walking across the stage with them. I don't like what happens to them when we do that, and I know most of them are fine and that'll deal. And I'm not like a tree hugger, but walking across that stage is nothing like that. So, but I will say too, in tournaments, when you get to going all the time, especially you get back to back, which we don't have many of those anymore. But when you're really grinding it, at the end of the day, when it's 4:00 and then you're standing there in a bag line trying to get your bag, and you've had 3 days of practice, and maybe you drove all night the night before, whatever, like you're tired, right?
Yeah.
It does get a little tired, especially if you're not catching. It does get tired of standing in that bag line and watching the sun go down, knowing you got to get up in the morning to do that. Whereas with MLF right now, the way that it is, when they say lines in, we cruise in. There's no race to weigh in, which I'm not trying to say I don't. I'm just saying I'm giving both sides, right?
Right.
There's no race back to make you. There's no stress on making it back. There's no stress on keeping them alive. I cruise back with a water, and we're laughing with my official, hopefully, because we had a good day. We're running 35 mile an hour back to the ramp. That's
Right.
nice. But absolutely, I miss walking across that stage. So I guess the answer is both, right?
Yeah.
Which one would I prefer? I guess it would, once again, it depends. It depends on the
Yeah.
scenario. But both are cool in their own ways. But as far as like holding them up on the stage and like hearing that whole deal, yeah, you can't replace that either. So
Yeah.
what would you guys prefer if you had both? You guys kind of see both sides of that probably now that I
Yeah,
mentioned it, huh?
we see both sides of it. There's nothing like seeing an angler walk across the classic stage. There's nothing like it. But not every stage is a Bassmaster Classic stage. So to go on the fact that, like what you were saying, fish care wise, Bass Pro Tour has that hands down. I mean, because they're not out of the water 30, 40 seconds and they're back in the water.
Yeah.
And with that, I really do like that because, I mean, you're not taking a chance of killing a fish in the box or whatever. And I can understand, especially when you got 90 to 100-degree weather and then trying to keep the box cool down and trying to keep them alive.
And you're stressed about it all day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can see both. I see the benefit more towards catch, wave, release than to walk across the stage. Walking across the stage and hearing the people cheer and all that and being able to hold up a big old fish, I mean, yeah, that's something everybody dreams of. But when it comes down to fish care and maintenance, catch, weigh, release.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah. I think it just depends. If I go out every day, or the days that I go out and catch like a good bag or catch me a dang mega bag, I want to walk across the stage, right? That's what I would rather do. But then there are times where I'm like, I'm in 25th or 55th or whatever. Like, we'll just go ahead and just release. So it depends on how good I catch them, I guess. That's the real answer.
Yeah.
But both are good. Both have their perks. Well, both have their good and bad to them. So
yeah. I bet his phone died. I bet. Because that was all of a sudden. He went clear to where it went. Oh, yeah, I bet his phone died. So, Norman, with that, let's wrap it up. And but yeah, we'll wrap it up, and I'm gonna go get something to eat.
Yeah, right. Well, that was a pretty good conversation with Fletcher, man. That was a fun talk with him, and really appreciate Fletcher coming on. Yeah, I bet you're right there. I bet his phone probably took a dump with the batteries, and
and especially if he was out on the water or something like that.
Well, he was actually. I think he was in his tackle room.
Well, I'm talking about. I know that he was there during the thing, but I think he was.
Oh yeah, he might have
on the water prior to doing this.
Yeah.
But so my dad was asking. It says, "Have your health issues affected your itch to get out there? Glad to have you down here now." He said that he's doing better. At the beginning of the year, he was kind of struggling a little bit, but he's doing better. I think what he said, he's about 3 months out from that surgery, Norman.
Yeah. I think he said 4 months out,
4,
and I think he said the doctors or the surgeon or whoever basically gave him about a 4-month time frame to kind of be getting back to almost 100%. He said he's not there yet, but he's almost.
Yeah. So, but other than that, that's what he had said. But Norman, man, is another great episode.
Yep.
I mean, we had 1,300, just a hair over 1,300. So,
watching live.
So, but So everybody can, if we can get everybody that is on here to like and follow the Deck Talk podcast on YouTube, and also look at Deck Talk podcast on every podcast platform. And there he is.
There he is. He's back
got
in the house.
So let's see.
Oh, no, you're good, man.
I think they hold on.
Yeah, that's what we're just talking about. Your phone probably went kaput.
Yeah, I told as soon as it happened, I said his phone died. So yeah,
it literally blinked red or said 10% right when you was asking me a question. And I'm like, I'll plug it in here in a second, and then I never did. So I'm too busy dodging all your questions. So,
well, that was. And it's funny that you keep on saying I'm not giving you the straight up answer, like, and because when I done my live and stuff to promote that you were coming on the podcast, I was like, hey, I'm just letting you know it's going to be a great episode. He's a straight shooter. He's going to just tell you how it is, and then you've said a couple times, I'm just not giving you the straight up answer.
No, I'm giving you the straight up truth. There's just no, like, the answers are kind of, this depends, there's this and there's that. So it's kind of like the whole weigh them in or release them on the water, that whole thing. Both have their sides. I honestly couldn't tell you which one's better. I just want to take the ones where I smash them. I want to weigh them in on a stage, and then the ones that I don't absolutely smash them, they can go back in the water. That's all. Yeah. So can you have that world? You can't live in that world. So I'm still in between.
Right? Yeah, I mean, if you could walk across the stage and hold 2 8-pounders up, I mean, every time that you walk across the stage, I mean, you'd be set.
Yep. But I don't want to be getting back to the house at 9:15 at night because I stood in line to weigh them on. You know what I mean? So
right. And then still have to retie for everything tomorrow.
Exactly. Yep. When you have those days, you just want to be done at 4 o'clock or whatever time it is and get back to the house.
So, can Fletcher, can you tell, like, how, if people want to, like, to start following you on social media, how can they, to start following you, how can they get in contact with you on that aspect to start watching?
Of course, your platforms.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I got Instagram right now is F Shryock, and then my Facebook, I think, is FS Fish, Facebook.com/FS Fish. So I haven't got on the YouTube train. My brother's big on there. I have some content on my brother's channel. It's a little bit older, but that's probably going to come out this next year. Something I haven't got into, but anyway, yeah, mainly Facebook and Instagram right now. So
yeah. So we had 1,300 people watching this live. So let's
awesome.
blow this up, and we'll get again. If let's see, I'd like to have Fletcher call us tomorrow and say I got 1,300 new followers. So that'd be great.
Thank you, guys. That's cool. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for everyone for watching. That's cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Norman, let's wrap this up. I smell dinner, and the fat boy is hungry.
Yeah, so. my wife's been up there cooking too, and it's starting to trickle down here. But anyway, Fletcher, man, it's been a blast having you on, and just getting to chit chat with you for a little bit. But we have a question we ask and I think we asked this to you, if I'm not mistaken, when we had you on the first time at Hawaii Marine. But if you were to have one person on your boat to fish with for the day, and this person could be passed away or still with us, who would that person be, and why would you want to fish with that person for the day? And that person does not have to, be in fishing. Could be anybody you'd like.
Yeah, I'd say just having my dad back on the water one more time would be cool. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and that's always something. I mean, my dad gets to go out with me pretty much every time that I go out on the water, unless I'm doing some kind of bait filming or something like that. He's out on it. And that's something that I definitely do not take for granted and stuff. So I can definitely understand that.
Yep.
So
sure.
What we need to do, Norman, we need to get Fletcher out on maybe take him to Lake X and let him show us how to to smash. I mean, my biggest bag there was 3 for 21. So
Yeah.
let's see if what he can.
There's a Lake X around. There's a Lake X around here, and you guys haven't told me about it.
Yeah, we need to. We'll get you. We'll get you on it. And
that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Is it good in the fall or no?
Oh,
yeah.
I'm telling you. I know I told the people that's listened to the podcast has probably heard me say this. I caught my first fish. This was in October, mid-October, and the first fish I caught of this day was 962. Second fish I caught was 830 something. And
in October, that's pretty legit.
October, I lost one over 10 pounds. My dad lost it. I was throwing a Damiki vault, and I was telling him, I was like, hey, get the net, and he got the net, and I told him, I said, do not put that net in the water, and I said, because I knew the fish was not ready to he wasn't done. And so he took a dive up underneath the boat. Well, my dad went down. When he started taking the dive, he went down, and you hear the metal on the vault and on my net. You just hear that ding, and then the next thing you know, the Damiki vaults go flying up behind me. And I ended up, I had over 21 pounds in 3 fish.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, please keep me informed. Yeah, let me know on that one. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch, and we'll definitely go out there. And the thing about it is like every time that we go, the most boats that I've seen on this lake has been 3 other boats on the water when I've gone out
wow.
there. Because it's a trolling motor only lake. So people, you know how people are, they get these 250, 300s on the back of the boat. They want to run them things. And so it's a trolling motor only. So they're like, there ain't no fish in a trolling motor. This lake,
that's cool.
This lake has tanks in it. And so
that's awesome. Yeah, definitely for me, like once the season kind of is over, I fish probably more in the fall than any time of the year. I know that sounds weird. But like I'm able to I don't have to worry about packing for the James River, because right now I'm trying to pack for St. Lawrence and James, because my truck and boat is going to go to the James and then to St. Lawrence. I'm going to fly home for a couple of different reasons. It'll save me money as well. I want to check out the St. Lawrence at least one more look. But once the fall comes, man, I got all kinds of time just to go fishing. There's no agenda, you know what I mean? So that's when I do a lot of my fishing. Is when a lot of people, when it's so dang hot, you can't stand it, and they're not biting very good. That's my favorite time of year to go, because I don't have any really other things going on that I have to worry about. So that'd be awesome.
We'll keep in touch with you, and we'll definitely get you out on Lake X, and we'll I tried to get Norman to break my 21 pounds and 3 fish, so maybe we take you out there and you can give it a shot at it.
That'd be cool. I doubt I can touch it, but I'd like to try.
Yeah.
They're in there, and it can be broken.
No, it can be.
That's cool.
It can be.
That's awesome.
All right, awesome, dude.
Well, guys, we're going to get off here. Fletcher, brother, man, we deeply appreciate you for coming on here, and every time we get the chance to talk to you, I enjoy talking to you, and so because I know that when we're talking, you're just gonna shoot it straight. You're gonna tell us how it is.
I try to,
and so I just enjoy talking to you, and but I wish you the best on the next 2. I hope you get the next 2, get in the top 10, to where you don't even have to sweat about nothing.
Don't even have to worry about it.
Just 2 top 10s, and because when Red Crest comes around, I want to be able to, in the morning at lunchtime, I want to be able to do a interview at Gunnersville with you. So
right on. I appreciate it. I'm motivated. We're gonna see what happens. Thank you guys so much for having me on once again. I appreciate you guys a lot.
Appreciate
you.
No problem, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Yep. Thank you guys.
See you guys.
Chat soon.
See you
guys.
All right, bye.
All right. See you. Bye.